of you know me, but for those of you who don't know me, I'm Vanessa Udelman, and I run a leadership consulting organization called Mosaic People Development. And the session today is mainly a client appreciation event. I work with the most incredible group of leaders, and I'm so grateful for all of you and all the energy you bring to all the work that we do. And so I thought, wouldn't it be fun to end the year to honor all of you? So whether you're new to my leadership community or somebody who's been part of my community for a long time, I really wanted to welcome you here today. So here's the reality check. Most of you who know me know that I'm a positive person, but I got to start with the reality check today. We have to get comfortable with the unknown, and that's not going to change. It's not going to change. Even the situation right now where people are having to cancel travel plans at the last minute. So we have to get comfortable with the unknown. And by the end of the session today, my goal for all of you is that you're being comfortable with the unknown. And so we're going to unpack that together today. I want you all to, as you start 2022, literally be a warrior of the unknown. I want you as a leader to be comfortable with it, to embrace it. And so part of that is really understanding, what does that mean? And so that's what I'm going to break down for you today. And as always, I've got tools for you. I've got processes we're going to go through, and we're going to look at each of you. So we're going to look at each of your individual situations because, oops, there's somebody who needs to mute. We're going to look at each of your situations. The purpose of this session today is to focus on transitions. So the obvious one is managing people back into the office or managing a virtual environment or a hybrid environment. But you may have already dealt with that. And so it's really you're going to be able to customize the session to a specific change or transition that you're personally working on. So here's what I want for all of you as we head into the new year is to have a mindset shift. The last almost 2 years has been about a lot of fear. And so I want you to be able to embrace the unknown without fear. I want you to be able to embrace the unknown without judgment of other people's actions and other people's choices. And I want you to be able to embrace the new year with a mindset of possibility. Because in every transition, with every change, there's always possibility, but it's your mindset that allows you to shift from fear and judgment to possibility. And that's what the session today is all about. So this is I don't know if any of you have seen this before, but this is just a really nice saying that I've seen before. When you look at fear, what is it? False evidence appearing real. Okay, what does that mean? This is a really cute slide. When somebody says, I'm afraid of the dark, they're not really, right? That's false evidence. What are they really scared of? Is there a ghost under my bed? When I was a little kid, I always checked my bed before I went under my bed before I went to sleep to see if there's like a little scary monster. So I wasn't afraid of the dark. I was afraid of the potential scary monster under my bed, right? So if somebody's afraid of heights, what are they actually afraid of? They're afraid of falling. If you think about something that you're fearful of, unpack it. Think about what specifically, because it's likely not the thing you're afraid of. And so that's part of moving from fear to that place of possibility, is really thinking about, what is it that I'm actually afraid of? Because if we look at this concept here, actual fear is false evidence appearing real. It doesn't actually exist. And if you can unpack it, then you can figure out, what do I need to do to move forward in a more positive way? So the piece around judgment is, I really believe that if we all had the attitude that we focus on a little more kindness and a little more judgment, little less judgment, wouldn't the world be a much better place, right? And so again, that's your choice. What I do is whenever I notice that I'm going into a place of judgment, I ask myself, why? Like, what is it? Because when I'm judging someone else, let's move to the next slide, right? Whenever you judge someone else, it reveals a part of yourself. Whenever I judge somebody else, I now am in the habit of saying, wait a minute, what am I judging this person for? What makes me feel like I'm superior to them? Or what's making me feel like I make better decisions than them, right? So whenever you catch yourself, I want you to get into the practice of thinking about judgment and noticing when you're in that place of judgment and shifting your thought. There's no reason to judge other people, especially in a leadership role. For those of you who work with me, you know that what we do is we move from a place of judgment to a place of curiosity. And it's that curiosity that I want to take with you into the new year. When somebody, let's flip it. When somebody judges you, it isn't actually about you. And I want you to keep that perspective too, right? It's about them. It's about their own personal barriers that they're encountering, that they're overcoming. So it's just such a freeing way to be in that place without fear and without judgment, and that place of possibility. So on that note, I don't know if anybody is familiar with the Tao of Pooh by Benjamin Hoff. It is such a terrific book. And what Benjamin Hoff does in this book is he identifies the 6 practices of Taoism, and then he trickles them through Winnie the Pooh's stories. And it is so delightful. I mean, who's more delightful than Winnie the Pooh? So Taoism is an ancient Chinese philosophy, right? And it was developed around the same time as Buddhism. The main concept is eliminate preconceived notions of how life should be and flow with the natural order of things. And that's, that concept of like, don't should anything. That's exactly what this book is all about. Don't say should, I should be doing this, they should be doing this, they should be doing that, right? Whenever you notice yourself, again, using that word should, it's the opposite of the message in this book, which is so powerful. And the other thing that I love about the book is that Winnie the Pooh lives a really simple life. There's this concept of like, there's nobody like you. He has a really interesting expression that Benjamin Hoff talks about in the book. A fly can't bird, but a bird can fly, right? And what does that mean? It means each of us bring our own uniqueness to the world. And it's about really understanding what the uniqueness is and flowing with it. And even though I read this book, honestly, a decade ago, I still remember the key message of going with the flow. And so that's why I thought in this kind of environment, it's a lighthearted, fun way to talk about things that I think some of the lessons that we've all learned through COVID, right? Through the lockdown, which is the important thing is we don't know. So why try to figure things out when we don't know? Winnie the Pooh never tries to figure things out when he doesn't know. I'll give you an example. In the story, Winnie the Pooh is going on a walk. In the book, Winnie the Pooh is going on a walk and he's going to give Eeyore a pot of honey for his birthday. But while he's on the journey, he gets really hungry. And so what does he do, being Winnie the Pooh? He eats the honey. And when he's finished the pot of honey, what does he realize? Uh-oh, I don't have a present for Eeyore. But then he looks at the pot the honey was in and he goes to Christopher Robin and said, please write happy birthday, Eeyore, on the pot. And he goes to Eeyore and he gives him this empty pot with his name on it for his birthday. And Eeyore is ecstatic. And so to me, that is just such a great example of mitigating that fear and that judgment and just being open up to possibilities, letting things happen, not trying too hard. The change you want does not exist outside of yourself. It comes from yourself. And the whole concept of patience, I mean, if any of you have done DISC, I know many of us have done DISC together. I'm an ID, right? I'm somebody who really likes to get results and work quickly and make things happen quickly. So for me, patience is something that I've been working on for a long time. So I really resonate with that concept of just being patient with the journey and letting it unfold. This is a wonderful quote from Winnie the Pooh in the book. Right? The easiest way to get rid of a minus is change it into a plus. I love it. I just think it's so simple and it just sums up the whole concept of that shift that we all need to be making as we head into constant uncertainty and change. And so many of us through the last couple of years have identified and kind of sought after that practice of being mindful, right? And so that's what this concept here is all about. Winnie the Pooh is deeply grounded in that concept of mindfulness, right? What day is it today? It's today. And today is my favorite day. And that's that concept of being really present and grounded in today. And so this is what the concept of Taoism that I want to leave you about before we move into like that hardcore focus on transition at work, right? I survive because I don't struggle looking for water. And that's it. That's the essence of really going through the flow. And I have to say, this concept has helped me so much over the last 20 months. So this is your choice, right? This is always your choice moving forward. Struggle against the water or go with the flow. And so that's my hope for all of you moving forward, is that you release the need to struggle against the water, whatever the water may be for you, whether it's changes at work or changes in your personal life, and have that mindset of going with the flow. Okay, so what is the problem? It isn't change that is causing a lot of stress. As we move into the content around talking about transition, I wanted to let you know also there is a PDF. Teresa has kindly placed a PDF in the chat. So now would be a great opportunity, a great chance to download that PDF, because we're going to do, you know me, I like to do workshops. I don't like to be a talking head. So I've got some questions and things for you to think about as we go through the rest of the session together. So as we look at the problem, right, it really isn't change that's causing people stress, it's the transition. And so that's what we're going to dive deeply into now, is what is this transition from old to new? And what is it about people that we get so stressed out every time we're in a transition? So let's do the definitions. And this is also in your workbook for you, right? Change. So what is change? Change is the situation that happened. That's it. I'm in a new job. We're back in the office, right? It's external. What we as leaders need to focus on and as individuals need to focus on is the transition from the old to new. That's a psychological process, right? And so I think about years ago when I started a new job, I was with an organization for 10 years and I was very safe and comfortable and I had lots of friends, and there's people that I'm still friends with, like Teresa, from back in the day, right? From that organization that I had to let go of. And so the change was I left my old company and I started in a new company. And I still to this day remember on my second day of the job, the company had a big party and it was in a courtyard on the ground floor of the building. And there were people in the courtyard from the company and they were eating hot dogs and hamburgers and popcorn. And I literally went to the food court. I bought my lunch. I walked by the party and I went up to my desk and I ate by myself because I had no friends yet. Okay. So I came from a company of knowing everybody and having lots of friends to literally not having a friend. It was hard. And so it's not the change that was hard for me. It was the transition of letting go of my old friends and that safe, comfortable environment and moving into that new environment where I had to reestablish myself, reestablish connections and make new friends. Okay. So as we move into transition, these are the things that are not working for you. They're not working for you if you're shying away from difficult situations. You can't do that anymore. We have to dial up our ability to have those crucial conversations with people. And when we do, it builds trust. Okay. You can't say I'm not good at the people side of leadership. I'm coaching 4 leaders right now who are not good at the people side of leadership. And they've gotten to the director level and they've been halted into their career. They're halted, right? The more senior you get in your organization, in your career, the more the people side of leadership matters, right? So let's focus a little bit on how do we do that in a way that feels comfortable, that feels authentic and genuine to each of you. Okay, so this stuff not working anymore. So one of the reasons that I see a lot of leaders focusing on the stuff in the past slide is because they're always task-oriented, right? And there's this continuum. You can even draw this on a piece of paper if you want, like draw this line and put yourself on this continuum. I'm curious, where do you see yourself right now in your current role? Are you really focused on the task? Are you really focused on relationships, or are you somewhere in between? Okay, so give yourself an X on the line. And now my question for you is, how is this working for you? Is this working for you? Because a lot of the people that I'm coaching right now, what I'm saying to them is, you don't need to change who you are, but you need to move your X. And so that's what we're working on in our coaching conversations is, what does it look like to move from that extreme focus on task up that continuum a little bit? You don't need to go all the way. That's not the expectation. But what does that movement look like for you so you can be more successful in your role as a leader? So that's something for all of you to think about and consider. So as we look at the definition of change and transition, and you're thinking, you may be thinking to yourself, well, Vanessa, like, I don't know how to manage transitions. Like, I'm not trained to do this. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go back to school and become a psychologist. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Okay. You can't do that. You're not going to go back to university and take a 4-year degree in psychology, right? None of us as leaders are trained psychologists, and yet it's your role to manage the people side of leadership. So I'm going to show you how you do that. I'm going to save you a 4-year college degree and $80,000. Okay. You don't have to be a trained psychologist to manage people. Okay. So you don't have to overstep anyone's personal privacy. This is not about like digging into people's personal information and finding out like, what is the reason you're so resistant to coming back to the office and the hybrid model. Like, it's not about that at all, right? That is not your job, right? Today is about learning ways to deal with this transition so everyone's comfortable. You feel comfortable, and the people that you work with feel comfortable as well. Okay, so when we look at defining transition, it's not the outcome. Okay, that's not what we're looking for. It's a process. It's a process of the ending of one situation and moving into the new beginning of the other. So think about me when I was in my new job. Okay, the ending was leaving that new job and leaving the old job and starting the new job. The transition was really understanding, wait a minute, why am I here? I left the old job because even though it was sad and I lost relationships, I was ready for a new challenge. I was ready to build. It was an opportunity to build and grow a department and a team. It was an opportunity to work in an incredible organization with executive support and a nice big budget to make things happen. So that's why I left, right? So transition's not the outcome. It's the movement from the old to the new. Okay. It starts from the ending, and the ending that most of us are focusing on right now is people organizations are requiring people not to work from home anymore. So let's look at that concept of letting go of the old way. Okay, so I want all of you to cross your arms. Okay, so just relax in your chair, cross your arms. Okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to cross your arms with the other hand on top. So just shift, do a little shift, okay? So put in the chat how that feels. I can see some of you going like this. Okay, so how does that, pop into the chat and let me know, how does that feel? Because all I asked you to do was cross your arms in a different way. Okay, less comfortable, awkward, exactly, different. And so what we're asking people to do is change the whole way they work, right? You've been working in your safe little bubble at home, and now we're saying you got to come back into the office. We're asking people to do this. Okay. And so it is uncomfortable. And as a leader, you have to understand and appreciate that, yes, this is, while it may not be uncomfortable for you or whatever change you're going through, I'm just using that as an example, change is uncomfortable. People don't resist change. They resist being changed. See the difference? There's a very big distinction between the two. So when you start moving into a transition, it's a process. What you have to do is get people to understand the WIFM, what's in it for me. Okay, because if they don't understand the WIFM, what's in it for me, they're going to resist being changed. Don't you resist being changed? Right? This is why 70% of organizational changes fail, because people resist being changed. They have to be part of the change. They really do. So instead of focusing on the change, the focus should be on transitioning people through the old phase into the new beginning. Okay. So some of you are familiar with this book, Managing Transitions. It is absolutely brilliant. And William Bridges has written this book. Again, it's not a new book, probably 20 years ago. And it's the best change book I've read in so long, because he really focuses on the fact of like, how do we get people to transition? And he really looks at the fact that it's a psychological process for people to come to terms with a new situation. And so what William Bridges has identified, this psychological process is, there's actually 3 phases. So the first is the ending. Okay, I left my old job, I moved to the new job. Ending. Okay, I used to work from home, and now I'm back in the office. Ending. Okay. The next phase is the neutral zone. So I'm in this new job, and hey, I actually have a friend. I'll never forget my first friend. Her name is Jane. And Jane and I'll never forget, like the first day Jane and I went for lunch together, and that's when I was in the neutral zone. Things were starting to settle in. I was starting to build relationships in the new organization. The new beginning was when I was in the elevator with people and they're like, hey, Vanessa, how are you? I had finally arrived in that new organization. So here's the thing. Everybody goes through different psychological and emotional experiences when they go from endings into the neutral zone, into the new beginning. And for all of us, if you want to be motivated through any organizational change or transition, or you as a leader want to motivate other people, what you have to do is you have to let go of the old way. However, easier said than done, because there's a lot of emotions related to the endings. And that's what I want to talk about now. How do we manage? And I'm going to start with maybe one of the trickier ones, which is loss. Because we don't often talk about the concept of loss, especially in the workplace. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So step one in transition management, be prepared and ready to identify and manage losses. Okay, these are losses and endings that change produces. Back in the office, new job, new role, whatever it is. Okay, so it's really important to understand good changes come with transition. They come with letting go. Let's say you just bought your dream home. Okay, let's say you just moved out of the city and you're now living in Prince Edward County and that's always been your dream. Terrific. Good changes come with things that you have to let go of. What do you have to let go of? Your community, your favorite restaurant, your terrific neighbors, right? Any change, even a good change. Oh boy, my kids are now 13 and 15, but I remember when my 15-year-old was born and I was on maternity leave, man, was that a shock. I only had my son at 34 years old. So I've been in my career for not for 34 years, but a good, I don't know what, like almost decade, right? When finally my son was born and I was home alone with this baby, not knowing what to do. Hello, crazy transition. Crazy transition. So here's what I'd like you to do. Pop into if you haven't downloaded the workbook yet, Teresa, can you put it in if you don't mind, in the chat one more time? I want to make sure everybody has it there. And I want you to write down, just take a minute to reflect on a change that you're going through right now. We're all going through changes. Every organization is going through changes. So I want you to write down a big change that you're going through or have recently gone through. It could be a good change, right? Like I got promoted. I'm a manager for the first time, or I'm in a new role. With leadership, people don't understand when you get promoted into a new role as a leader, I call it new level, new devil, next level, right? When you go into that next level, it requires new skills and behaviors that you have to learn. Okay. So I want you to take a minute and write down the change. And then I want you to think about, what do you need to let go of? What do you need to let go of? And then I want you to think about, what are you gaining? And it's interesting because if you look at the bottom of page 4 in the workbook, we're all going through this collective change, right? Of working, we all went through it March 2020 when we all had to work from home, and we're all going through this hybrid model change now. So I want you to think about also, and you can do this activity in your one-on-ones or in a team meeting, right? Talk to everybody in your team and say, hey, everybody, what are we letting go of? What is ending for you? What are some of your losses? Again, you don't need to be a psychologist, but what you do need to do is help people manage these transitions. And by acknowledging something like that, how rare are you going to be as that leader who says to people, I just want to acknowledge that this is a big transition and that you're losing some things. And I get that. Wow. You know what? One of the number one motivators for people at work is a leader who cares about them. So you're just demonstrating so much caring by saying, hey, this is a loss. What are you losing and what are you gaining? And getting people to look at it from both perspectives is super, super powerful. Okay, anyone want to maybe pop into the chat something you think like you feel like a loss? What is a loss that people are going through when in this hybrid work model? Let's see what some of your thoughts and insights were. And we're gonna come to the gains, but just pop into the chat and type in losses. Like, let's just be real about this. What is the loss? What are people leaving behind as we move to a hybrid model? Yeah. Like those are real things. Those are real things. Absolutely. Time and work-life balance. Okay, let's do gains. Let's do gains. What are people gaining? There's always a flip side to everything, right? You can focus on loss and fear, or you can focus on possibility. That was my very first slide today. Spider friends in your basement, Cam. Cam, I want to come over and see your spider friends. Yeah, so what are we gaining? We're gaining connections, we're gaining relationships, right? This is the heads and tails of the coin. The team atmosphere, yeah, our culture, we're getting our culture back. Some recognition, yeah. Leadership skills, you bet, right? So there's so many things that we're gaining as well. I love that list, that's terrific. Okay, so we did this in the chat. All right, so those of you who know me know that I'm obsessed with this model, obsessed with it. And that's why we're doing it again. For those of you who have never seen this before, I'm so excited to share this with you. It's called my sphere of influence. And so when you're in any transition, you have to take time to identify what's in your sphere of influence and what's out of your sphere of influence, right? So let's type in the chat with your return to work. Most of you are not the person that made the decision around the model. What is out of your sphere of influence? What do you have no control over? Let's go back to the chat. What do you have no control over when it comes to returning to work? Whether it's a hybrid model or still a virtual model. And I know some of you your organization's decided you're staying from home. You're fully staying from home forever and have got rid of your office space. So what is out of your sphere of influence? The timing of the change, yes. Control over hours, maybe how often you're supposed to come into the office, where your office is. I know a lot of people whose offices have moved during COVID. They've downsized, they've gotten rid of their old office space and they've reconfigured space, right? The policy, okay. Let's type in the chat what's in your sphere of influence. So you have to let go of everything. Here's the concept. You got to let go of everything that's out of your sphere of influence. Why? Well, you have no control over it. So why are we worrying about things and stressing out about things that are out of their sphere of influence? This, by the way, is another great activity you can do with your team. Put this on a whiteboard and ask your team, what's in our sphere with this change? What's out of our sphere? Okay, so what's in your sphere of influence? So for some of you, it's how often you come in, what days of the week you come in. That feels more empowering when you focus on what's in your sphere of influence, right? When you can focus on what you can actually coordinate and your attitude. Yeah, your own behavior, your attitude, that's all in your sphere of influence, and that's your choice. So we're going to talk more about that attitude in a minute, how you're going to adapt. Exactly. Okay. So I want to keep going and look at the rest of this list. So we looked a little bit at loss and the fact that it's normal. The reason I want to show you this list and spend time on this list today is because I want to normalize it. This is normal. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Nobody's doing anything wrong by feeling these emotions. You just have to go through them. Okay, so this is all a big part of emotional intelligence. Every leader has to have high emotional intelligence. And what that means, and this was Daniel Goleman's classic book, really tipped us off, right, in the 90s, that it's not just our IQ that matters, it's our EQ, our emotional quotient, that matters as well. So you have to be aware of your emotions and how they impact you and the people around you. So if you're complaining as a leader about going back to work or this hybrid model, what tone are you setting for the rest of your team? Well, they're gonna be like, oh, if that person's complaining, I guess I can complain too. Yeah, this does suck, right? So you really have to think about, look at all these bubbles related to emotional intelligence. Look at that. The first one, self-awareness. I'm aware of myself and I'm aware of my behavior. I'm aware of the words that I choose and how they impact the people around me. Empathy, I think, is going to be the #1 skill that leaders need to demonstrate in 2022. We got to dial up our empathy. Motivation, you cannot motivate other people. Did you know that? What you can do as a leader is create an environment that is motivating for them. And so you need to think about how you do that, right? Self-regulation is maybe biting your tongue when you want to swear because you're so angry about some of the things, some of the changes that are happening. Instead of doing that, focus on what's within your sphere of influence. And of course, social skills. So there's a lot of components to emotional intelligence. So this is one of my favorite models. When we look at all of those emotions that come with massive transition, even a small transition, by the way, what this shows us, it's a very interesting chart. I put it for you in your workbook as well, is that it's called the emotional guidance scale. And we have total control over those feeling bad, being in the blue section versus being in the green section. But this is how let me just go to the next slide, because I want to show you that there's like a hierarchy of emotions, right? And you'll see right at the bottom is fear, grief, depression, despair, and powerlessness. All of these emotions are real, and there's nothing wrong with being at number 22. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes shitty things happen in life, and sometimes we do have grief, right? That we're working with. The goal with the emotional guidance scale is to go up the scale, get yourself up the scale. What you're not going to do is go from fear to joy. That's where this whole like positive psychology and looking at everything through a positive lens falls apart. Because sometimes we literally have grief. Sometimes we are literally stressed. Sometimes we're actually feeling really angry about how things are evolved or things that are happening in the office. And so what we need to do is we need to just get ourselves up that emotional scale. So if you even look at these emotions in the ending piece, right? When you move from fear to anger, guess what? You've moved up the emotional scale. That's a good thing. If you're away from fear and anger and you're just worrying about how it's going to unfold, good. Because worry is better than fear. You're moving yourself up the emotional scale, right? If you're likely in that place of frustration right now, terrific, because that's a lot better than being in that place of fear. And if you can get yourself from that frustration just to being content about the change, hooray, we're finally in the green zone. Okay, so this is a really powerful model that I want you to all think about for yourself. If you want to motivate yourself through any transition, you have to really understand how to manage these endings and what it takes to move yourself up the emotional guidance scale. So I want you to think about, if you could pop into the chat again and think about what it is that moves you up the emotional guidance scale. So it could be things like, mindfulness, practicing yoga, meditation, walking in nature, listening to really great music, upbeat music, dancing, watching a comedy, laughing. I love Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend. He's my favorite podcast. Whenever I listen to him, I laugh so hard. He's hysterical. So what are the things that you have found? This is what I want you to think about. And pop into the chat if you have any insights. What are the things that you found are moving you up that emotional guidance scale? Because that's where we want to be, is moving up. Yeah, whether it's a workout, yeah, like moving is so good. Moving, you know why moving is good? Things like a workout or yoga, because you're actually releasing your energy. You're moving your energy. I actually, when I'm feeling really stressed, I put my feet on the ground and I literally close my eyes and I visualize like a purple or white light going through my body, right? And taking all the negative energy out into the ground. And then I tap my feet on the ground I just feel so much better. And you know what? You can do that. You can do that like in the middle of a meeting. It takes literally 5 seconds to do that. Maybe 10, maybe 20. You can do it for 12 minutes too. Stepping away, spending time with loved ones. Yeah, these are really, really nice. Okay, so that's your job, y'all. That's your job, is to get yourself up that emotional guidance scale. This is huge. This is huge. So be in that place of noticing. Don't be in that place of judging. Oh, I shouldn't be. Vanessa said I shouldn't be fearful. No, if that's where you are, just notice. And your goal is to reach up, right? Here's some nice examples here too. You're in control of reaching up the scale. That's totally within your sphere of influence. When we talked about sphere of influence, that's totally within your sphere of influence. So this is a really important concept. What you focus on expands. So if you're focused on being in that place of fear, guess where you're going to stay? You're going to stay in that place of fear. If you're focused on this sucks, guess what? This is going to suck. But if you focus on, when we look at losses and gains, if you focus on losses, yeah, you're going to be stuck in losses. But if you can focus on gains, that's going to be super helpful for you, and to coach your team to focus on the gains as well. Okay, so we're going to do a fun exercise now. And what I want you to do is grab a piece of paper, and I want you to write down a rose, a thorn, and a bud. So I want you to write down something that is blooming in your life. You don't need to share this with anybody. Okay, it's just for your own personal use. I want you to write down something that's blooming in your life right now. What's a success? And then I want you to write down a challenge, something challenging you're dealing with. And then I want you to write down a bud. What could be a bud for you right now? If you're welcome to put them in the chat and share them if you like. You certainly don't have to. Something you're hopeful about, something you're looking forward to. So for me, this webinar is a success. It's something, and being able to connect with you in this way is something I've been really looking forward to for the last month. A challenge is my parents are both not in the best of health right now, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I'm in the sandwich generation, and that's something that's been challenging for me right now. Potential and bud for me, I'm excited. Well, first of all, the potential of having some rest. I'm really excited over the next couple of weeks to chill on my couch, hopefully go do some skiing, hit the hills if there's any snow, walking in the ravine. But I'm excited after my rest for the new year and all of the opportunities to work with you collaboratively to help you be the best version of yourself at work. When a new year starts, I'm always excited about planning to do new things. And just the idea of this webinar, I've never done a webinar for my clients. It's like a client appreciation event before. And it was really exciting for me. I had the idea and I moved on it. Okay, so has everybody got their success, their challenge, and their potential, and their bud, the rose, their thorn, and the bud? Okay, so here's the goal for all of you, right? Focus on your rose and your bud. Remember, if we go back here, let's go back here for a minute. Remember this, what you focus on expands. So you could focus on your thorn, or you could focus on your rose and your bud. That's your choice. Because we've all got roses, we've all got thorns, and we've all got buds. Why? Because that's just life. That's just how life works. And what's really interesting is, I don't know if you know, but we do have this whole research paper here on our negativity bias. It's like pages and pages of documentation on our negative bias, right? Our tendency is not only to register negative stimuli more readily, but also dwell on those events, right? So as humans, it's interesting. I was talking to a group of clients yesterday. As humans, we tend to focus on the negative. I was talking to a group of clients yesterday, and we were talking about feedback, and we we're talking about giving balanced feedback. And somebody in the workshop said, you know, Vanessa, I know that I can be really critical. And so it's just the way my brain thinks. And it's not uncommon to think that way. We're sort of trained at school in the methodology of Socrates and Plato. And, you know, I think, therefore I am, and we're trained to really think critically and analytically. And so it's not your fault, because you're actually being trained to think that way. We have this negative bias. And so what's really important to do, and what I said to this client yesterday is, I want you, when you give feedback to one of your directs, start with a positive. Okay, when you review that project, start with a positive. Say to them, okay, let's do a list of things that are going well with this project. Let's do a list of things that need some work. So why do you think I told this person, you type your answer in the chat. Why do you think I told this person she has to start with the positive before she moves to the negative? What do you think the reason is for that? Because there's a very specific reason. And funnily enough, I asked her the same question yesterday. What is important when you're giving somebody feedback, especially if your brain, and there's nothing wrong with your brain thinking about risks. It's good to assess risks, right? The first stuff sets the mood, right? Helps the listener be receptive. And so they don't focus on the negative. Yeah. Guess what? Because we have this negative bias. If you tell somebody something negative and then something positive, they're going to ignore every word that comes out of your mouth that's positive. I promise you. Try it, see, right? If you start with the positive, they're going to take it in. Then you move to, okay, here's what needs to change. And let's brainstorm what we can do to overcome these areas that aren't working. That is such a powerful thing to do. Okay. So the last thing I want to leave you with is this concept of being stuck. There was just made me think about this when I saw this wonderful image in the book, The Tao of Pooh. Winnie the Pooh, I'm sure you've all seen, I should have put that image on the slide, but I didn't. Winnie the Pooh has this image of his little butt sticking out of a tree. Have you all seen that image? And he's literally stuck in a tree. He was going to get honey and he got stuck. Okay. And it's this whole story about how Winnie the Pooh gets unstuck from the tree. It's so cute. So I want you to think about an area in your life where you feel stuck. Okay. And I'm going to show you a way of how to get unstuck. And it's really motivating to know that you can get unstuck out of any situation. And this is a tool, again, that you can use with your team when people are feeling stuck. So write it down. You're not going to have to share it. Again, is it a project? Is it a personal relationship? What is the situation? It could be the hybrid model, right? It could be getting back to work, whatever it is. Okay. Write down that area where you feel stuck. Okay, everybody written it down? Okay, so here's what you're going to do. You've written down now one perspective on that situation. And what I want you to do is I want you to write down Michelle Obama's perspective on it. Same situation. Okay. Now you're going to write down what if you were having coffee. I have coffee with Michelle all the time. I'm sure you do too. Next time you're having coffee with Michelle Obama, I want you to ask, okay, think about you sitting at lunch with Michelle Obama and telling her what the situation is. What do you think she would tell you from her perspective as a leader? How would she tell you to get unstuck? Okay, now we're going to choose the perspective of a wise person that you know. Family, friend. Somebody that you work with, who you see is really wise. What do you think their perspective would be on the same situation? Let's do the Dalai Lama now. Okay, same situation. What would the Dalai Lama tell you about the situation where you feel like you're stuck? What would his perspective be? Someone who's spiritual, someone who probably has a very similar philosophy to Winnie the Pooh around going with the flow. What would that perspective be? All right, y'all, let's Lady Gaga it. Snap, snap, Lady Gaga. What would her perspective be? She's looking very fabulous in this picture. What would Miss Fabulousness say about your situation? Okay, and the last one we're going to look at, LeBron James. We've got a high-performing athlete. This is not if it's Not LeBron James that you admire, who's a high performing athlete. Plug in your own person. But someone who really focuses on excellence and high performance and hard work. He's also very philanthropic. So what would the perspective, if you were sitting down with LeBron, what would LeBron say to you? Okay, so now what I want you to do, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 perspectives. I want you to circle the perspective or perspectives that you like best. Which one feels, oh, let's go back to that emotional guidance scale. Which one of these perspectives is going to get you up that emotional guidance scale? Help you to feel a little lighter, maybe move you from that blue zone in the emotional guidance scale into the green zone. Circle that one. Okay. If you could write in the chat what was helpful about that activity for you. What did you like about it? What did you notice? What this is a coaching exercise that I learned when I did my coaching certification, and it's called perspective shifting. Right? It's a great tool. If you want to move people through any change, yeah, that's it, Rob, right? You have to be able to shift their perspectives. And so you may have people on your team who are super stuck around this change. So to Julia's point, it forces a change in one's lens to consider other ways of viewing the same situation. You take the bias out of it. We always have our own personal bias. Every single person who's going through any kind of hybrid work model or going back to work or whatever it is has their own lens. It allows you to broaden that lens. Yes, exactly, Alina, right? Focus on the problem solving instead of the problem finding. I love that. That's a terrific one. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Really, really nice. So again, this is a tool that you can use with your, and you know what's really, use it with your team. What's really interesting about this exercise is everything came from your head. I didn't tell you what to do, right? Nobody else told you what to do. All of these answers came from within you. That's very Winnie the Pooh-ish, shall we say? Yes, Winnie the Pooh would approve of this shift that you just took. 10 out of 10, 2 thumbs up. Okay. So, yeah, so we already talked about that in the chat. Terrific. So as I wrap up, and I'm going to stay back for questions if anyone has questions. Here's what I want you, my goal for you, my wish for you as we head into the new year is many of us have been looking for ways to relieve our stress, to become more peaceful, to live more mindful and meaningful lives. And so my wish for you is that you're part of the shift, this global shift, this emerging shift, where many of us are really starting to think deeply about how do we move out of that place of fear and judgment into that place of possibility. And I hope that today I was able to help you and give you some practical tools to be able to do that. So today is your opportunity to build a tomorrow that you want. And as I mentioned that, I want to, as I'm planning for 2022, I want you to give me some feedback. What is it that you're struggling with as a leader? What is it? Because the way I see the new world of work is that the new model of work is that we work collaboratively together, right? What is it that you need support? What kind of support do you need? What kind of programs do you need? What kind of development do you need as a leader to help you make that shift in 2022? So if you have any suggestions or insights for me, please send them my way. I know that some of you have taken my Leading Your People program, which is a program that I started during COVID. And I'm going to be doing the fourth cohort starting in the new year. And it's all about helping you to expand as a leader, helping you to understand the nuts and bolts of leadership. So you can go on my website or just email me if you want any more information about that. And so as we wrap up, I want to thank you all for joining me. It was so lovely to be here and spend this time with you today. Let's take a minute as we wrap up to head our last time into the chat And just share with me, what was your key learning or insight for today? What did you get out of the session? What was most helpful for you? So we can see a couple of comments in there already. Changing mindset, be more open. Be more open-minded than closed-minded. Why would you want to be closed-minded, right? Being open-minded is within your sphere of influence, right? That task relationship line, going with the flow. Yeah, all right. Everybody, maybe we should all read the Tao of Pooh over the holidays. I think that would be so nice if we did that. Yeah, we need to get that Winnie the Pooh book. It's so, yeah, getting into that place of being Zen. The emotional guidance scale. Yeah, the emotional guidance scale is a game changer. Can we use this? Okay, so I'm just reading your comment around most helpful emotional guidance scale. One question, there are psychologists, PhDs on the team with whom I work. You mentioned avoiding the psychological analysis, but this is part of their expertise. Can we use this as support, or is this something we need to navigate around? Okay, let's take that. I'm not sure. You may want to unmute, Kim, as I wrap up and we can talk about this. Yeah, so I want to just clarify, I did not mention avoiding the psychological analysis. What I mentioned is, let me just reframe that. I may have said that incorrectly. You don't need to have a degree in psychology to manage endings, neutral zone, and new beginning. That's what I meant. If you do, oh my gosh, even better. Like, the more power to you. I'm a coach, so I have done quite a bit of learning and educating myself in psychology, because it really helps me as an executive coach. And of course, I bring that into my practice. But my experience is most leaders don't have a degree in psychology. And so that was really my comment, Kim. I hope that clarifies that for you, is you don't need to have a degree in psychology to be a great leader and support people. What you really do need is to just understand the ending, the neutral zone, and the new beginning, and help people move through that. So I hope that was helpful for you. Yeah, really good, Sue, right? Yeah, focus on people's emotions, right? Not just the results. That's really, really important. And that's today, the session is like how to motivate yourself and your team, Sue. That's motivating for people. And different perspectives is so freeing. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, so we are going to stop the recording now, and I'm going to stop my share. We're officially done. I wanted to thank you all for being here.